How many of you have suffered a playing-related injury, such as tendonitis, nerve compression, or repetitive strain? Have you ever had a student experience a playing-related injury or playing-related pain? If you, like me, answered yes to any of those questions, then you are in a very common situation for string players and teachers. My personal struggle with tendonitis began in high school when I tore a tendon in my right arm and had to completely stop playing for several months and attend physical therapy. Later, as a cello performance major at the University of Illinois, I struggled off and on with tendonitis and worked to remediate my technique while consistently attending physical therapy and massage therapy. At times, I wore an arm brace on my forearm when I wasn't playing in order to take off some of the pressure from the tendons in my elbow and avoid overuse. All of these struggles culminated in my senior year when I had to have surgery on my left wrist. After my surgery, I knew I needed to make major changes to my technique because my current course was not sustainable. My cello professor, Brandon Vamos, encouraged me to begin Alexander technique lessons. My introduction to Alexander technique was my first major change to my approach to movement as a whole. Around the same time, I was introduced to Tanya Carey's book, Cello Playing is Easy, which was extremely useful for releasing tension and remediating my faulty techniques. Tanya Carey was mentored by Paul Rolland and was a project teacher in his string research project. She credits Rolland for insisting that she attend a Margaret Roll workshop where she uncovered a more focused direction to her previously eclectic approach to teaching. And finally, I began pouring through Paul Rolland's book, The Teaching of Action in String Playing. Thanks to Rolland's approach, I have been happily playing injury-free for over a decade. The Teaching of Action in String Playing book and the accompanying film, the Paul Rolland workshop, and the mentorship that I have received through the Paul Rolland Society's certification program have changed my playing completely. Additionally, Rolland training has equipped me to teach my students from their very first lessons the importance of freedom and ease in playing and the use of good motion patterns free from excessive tension. Paul Rolland lived from 1911 to 1978 and pioneered a movement-based approach to string playing backed by scientific research. He was a professor of violin at the University of Illinois and a founder of the American String Teachers Association. He is internationally renowned for his approach to string playing and for his work with the University of Illinois String Research Project, which was a government-funded research project that took place in the 1960s. One major result of the project was Rolland's publication, The Teaching of Action in String Playing, which is accompanied by a series of films by the same title. I'll frequently be referencing this book today, especially Rolland's approach to teaching shifting and vibrato. Rolland is known for emphasizing that even more advanced techniques like teaching shifting and vibrato can be taught in their embryonic form within the first 2 years of study. And though Rolland's approach is often from a violin and viola perspective, his ideas are applicable to all bowed string instruments and have been built upon by several wonderful low string pedagogues such as Margaret Roll and Tanya Carey. In the Teaching of Action in String Playing, Rolland holds that preliminary shifting exercises are valuable for dissolving excessive tension in the left arm and hand as a foundation for developing shifting skills and to develop the student's concept of the entire fingerboard, not just a small part of it. I will be presenting these preliminary shifting exercises in chronological order with the idea that they should be introduced to your students within their first 2 years of study. We can start with exploring the low, middle, and high positions of the instrument with the shuttle. This is a wonderful action to introduce to your student as soon as he or she has established their instrument hold. For violins and violas, mark the position of the magic X on the bass joint of the first finger of the left hand. Keep the magic X in contact with the neck of the violin or viola while shifting between low and middle positions. You'll notice that I'm using a very small instrument today, my son's violin, for my violin demonstrations. This action can be done either in rest position or in playing position, depending on the comfort level of the student. The middle position for cellists is over the fourth finger in fourth position. You'll notice I've marked it with my high dot. I can explore the shuttle from low to middle positions first And then from low to middle to high position, and then gradually, smoothly shifting between all three positions. I can try this on any string. And with my students, I'm going to be looking for correct thumb placement, encouraging them once they reach middle position to bring the thumb up above the strings, floating it in the air, and then gently bringing it back to position on the left side of the neck when they return to low and middle positions. I will also look for typical errors like jerky movements or incorrect thumb placement, or incorrect thumb placement in the high position. When the shuttle is comfortable, it's time to teach shifting pinky plucks. Pluck various rhythms, first in low and middle positions, shifting during the rest, and then try shifting from low to high position and back again. As the student is ready, you can try more interesting rhythm patterns. Shifting during the rest. And then finally shifting to high position. Left arm swinging introduces arm movement for string crossing and promotes freedom in the left arm, hand, and shoulder. Initial movements are only from low strings to high strings. But can advance to string crossings with position changes as well. Be sure to watch out for jerky movements or incorrect thumb path as the student travels, which will impede their ability to comfortably reach the lower strings. As they're ready, invent all sorts of rhythm patterns. And help them notice that swinging pendulum-like motion in the arm. This is also a great time to introduce or review the pinky strum. This can be added to the shuttle, and you can do a pinky strum in middle, in low position, or in high position. Notice for the cello in high position, we'll think of making an ellipse-like shape, and even think of gentle body movement. Notice the position of the thumb, and encourage the student to notice the difference between the position of the thumb in middle position and the floating thumb in high position for cellos and basses. Students should also be careful not to slide their thumb as they pluck, which would be an incorrect pattern, but to feel a solid position for the thumb that allows the arm to move while keeping the thumb stable. The octave game is a great way to explore shifting and encourage beautiful tone and intonation at the same time. Begin by playing an open string and its octave harmonic. Notice how I used long, quick bow strokes for clear tone. When the student is ready, begin alternating the harmonic octave with a stopped finger on the string above the open string. You may also explore playing the stop note with a variety of fingers, shifting between the harmonic and the stop note with first finger, second finger, third finger, or fourth finger. Always look for smooth movements and freedom from excessive tension. You may need to encourage your student to tap the thumb between shifts. Tapping my thumb 3 times. Then I'll try shifting. I'll release the finger by tapping 3 times. And then prepare to shift again. After a student has mastered the octave game, they can begin incorporating simple shifts into their most simple pieces. Here's an example of finger replacements and easy shifts in Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. After my students have mastered the octave game, I like to introduce the piece Cradle Song from Stanley Fletcher's book, New Tunes for Strings. Here's a brief excerpt. Long silent shifts are first taught without the bow. This action encourages large, free, and bold movements led by the upper arm. You can begin with 1 or 2 middle fingers on 1 or 2 of the strings and shift rapidly and smoothly from low position to high position. I'll now refine my motion from 2 strings and 2 fingers to 1 string with 1 finger. At this point with my own cello students, I like to incorporate ski jumps from Tanya Carey's book, Cello Playing is Easy. One common problem that I see both with ski jumps and long silent shifts for cellists is movement of the body as the student works to reach the end of the fingerboard. If this is an issue for your student, just encourage them to tap a few times on the strings in low position, and then without changing their posture at all, try to tap the bridge and come back. This usually assures the student that they can reach the end of the fingerboard without a body movement. And if your student is unable to stretch their arm out to reach the bridge, you may need to look into a different in-pin height, a different chair, or perhaps a better suited instrument size. For violins and violas, watch out as they shift that when the fingers flatten to reach high position, they return to their normal rounded position as the student shifts back to low position. Next, the student is ready for long free shifts with the bow. We'll begin with the third finger on the highest string and play what Rolland called the ghosts. Next, try the flute in the same way, but on the lowest string. Use very light, smooth bow strokes, and again, notice whether or not your student is using smooth movements and whether or not the path of their thumb is correct. After studying these preliminary shifting exercises, the student is ready for stepwise shifts with a small melody fragment. I'll be demonstrating a short excerpt from the tune Au clair de la lune. As I prepare to shift a whole step, I'll very softly pluck with my left hand to test my pitch. As the student advances, they may test with a ghost tone instead of a pizzicato. Check in with the student and make sure that their thumb is staying soft and free from excessive tension. You might need to encourage them to tap their thumb between shifts and also help them to remember that they're hanging from the string, not pressing from finger into thumb. This is a great time to introduce many additional melody fragments. I'll show you Rain, Rain, Go Away, which is one of my favorites for its simplicity. For cello, it uses only fingers 4 and 1, and for violin and viola, it uses fingers 3 and 1. Now we can include shifts within melody fragments. I will demonstrate a short excerpt from Mary Had a Little Lamb using only first finger. As my students work on this, I'm constantly reminding them to tap their thumb to release any tension and to notice the release in finger pressure as they shift from one position to another. The F sharp to A pattern should be practiced repeatedly, first with open string to set the ear, and then shifting up to fourth position, noticing the ghost as the finger lightly shifts up to fourth position. The next step in Rolland's highly systematic approach is including melody fragments with shifts from one finger to another. Here's a short excerpt from Barcarolle. And this is another excerpt from Row, Row, Row Your Boat. On page 134 of the Teaching of Action in String Playing, Rolland addresses additional shifting studies. One is playing a one-finger scale on one string. Here's a demonstration. We can also study playing short melody fragments in a low position on a high string and then transferring them to a high position on the next lower string. I'll demonstrate. Play a ghost tone as you approach fifth position. And play a ghost tone to return to first position. One final note about shifting. As your students move up and down the fingerboard, the fingers must always be angled slightly back, never forward, because this interferes with a smooth motion. If your student really struggles with this, I suggest drawing a clock on their index finger. Put a mark for each hour and encourage the student to place the finger on the string right at the 11 o'clock portion of their finger. Chapter 15 of the Teaching of Action in String Playing opens with a line that always makes me laugh a little, and I wonder if you will find it humorous as well. Rolland writes, "In spite of the many stories, there is nothing mysterious about the vibrato." Vibrato, just like all other string techniques, according to Rolland, should be taught within the first 2 years of study. Students can learn to vibrate well when they are free from excessive tension. Rolland's vibrato studies are designed to release impulses and create healthy reflexes. Violinists and violists are taught 3 types of vibrato: finger, wrist, and arm. For cello and bass, only arm vibrato is taught. Preparatory relaxation studies are the first step to developing a vibrato. Start by supporting the violin with the right hand while you drop and swing your left arm. Come back to playing position while maintaining that same relaxed feeling in the shoulder. Now once I'm in playing position, I'm going to flex my wrist by moving it in and out. Then I'll relax the thumb by tapping it. I'll slide up and down on my magic axe. And with my very youngest students, I encourage them to pretend the neck is their favorite stuffed animal and to pet the neck. Tapping motions are similar to vibrato motions. Upper string players may place the thumb in middle position and curve the fingers while reaching over the fingerboard. I'll remind you that this is not exactly the same position I would have if I was in a bigger instrument, but unfortunately this 8th size violin is all that is available for me today to demonstrate on. Okay, reach over the fingerboard and tap the instrument on the left side of the lowest string. Imagine that your finger is a ping pong ball bouncing back from the table. Encourage the students to try various rhythms. How about tiri tiri ti ti? Notice how my fingers spring upward. Now you may move the bouncing to the strings, continuing to bounce quickly away from the strings, like they're hot. Try adding this to the shuttle. For cellos and basses, tapping does not occur on the opposite side of the fingerboard, but will happen on the left side of the neck where it can be more comfortable. Start with a very quick tap, and then encourage more taps and even various rhythms. With every tap, think about the reflex that happens when you pop away from the body of the cello. Move to the strings. Try it in high position and in low position. On low strings or in high strings. Developing left arm balance is a key element to developing continuous, beautiful vibrato. We'll pretend to use a salt shaker. Starting first with the right hand, shake salt. Now try with the left. Might feel a little harder to your right-handed students, so try with both hands. Usually the motion of the right arm can encourage correct motion of the left arm when done simultaneously. Try faster and slower. Notice the motion of the upper arm, how it rotates in an equal and opposite motion, very similar to a seesaw. Keep practicing until the motion for your students is continuous and regular. Can they gradually turn their hands toward themselves? Until it mimics a violin vibrato? Try with both hands. I really like using toy salt shakers because the students not only can feel the motion, but they can hear the motion. When the motion is continuous and balanced, the shaking is steady. And you'll notice as I turn here, if my motion is tense, then the rhythm of the shaking changes. And I can try again, listening for that clear and even shaking sound as I move from this position to that. Can you shake a stick? Of course you can. So you can also perform vibrato. Hold your bow in front of your chin, and with a firm grip in the right hand and a soft hold in the left hand, allow the right hand to shake the bow while it slips through the left hand fingers. I find with my young students this is most easily done with a dowel rod rather than a bow. But if you do want to go with the bow, then make sure that the bow hair is pointed towards their faces. I find it to be much easier for them to manage. Once the right hand motion is established and rhythmic, try moving the bow with the left hand. This can be a little bit more difficult, as you see, and then alternate between right and left hands. Working on a very smooth, rhythmic motion. Go to rest position with your instrument and we'll experiment with polishing the string. I'm using a tissue under my third finger so that I can slide more lightly along the string, but if you don't have a tissue handy, just use a very light third finger. In rest position with your magic X in position and your thumb in the throat of the instrument, slide back and forth on the third finger using steady, gentle motions. The motion should be rhythmic and smooth. Gradually move to playing position while continuing to polish. For cellists, polishing the string is very similar. While we will not just use third finger, use second and third, the motion should likewise be continuous and steady. You can try it with various rhythms. Increasing the speed gradually. You can try large motions, moving to small motions. And you can try it in low position, middle position, and high position. In addition to polishing the string, I like at this point to teach the chop as taught to me by cellist, Rolland student, and wonderful pedagogue Joanne Irwin. Place the thumb in the throat of middle position, and with the 4 fingers lightly on the A string, allow the palm to gradually bump into the body of the cello and spring back. In this way, the students are feeling this chop-like motion as they bounce and rebound from the body of the cello. Tap and hold builds on the skills students have developed through tapping. We'll begin with a short rhythm pattern, and then we'll throw the hand and the middle fingers onto the body of the instrument. Notice the upward motion of my hand as I tap, and how like magnets clicking together when I throw my hand into the body of the instrument. I have a lot of weight attaching to the instrument, keeping my hand from sloshing around. This is also a whole arm motion. We shouldn't see movement only from the fingers or the wrist, but from the whole arm. Move this to the strings. While violinists and violists might be comfortable beginning this with a tapping of only finger 3, for cellists and bassists, I find it to be best to support the 3rd finger with the 2nd finger as well. Experiment with this in different positions around the instrument and with different finger combinations. We'll continue our study of vibrato with tap and hold while using the bow. Using the whole arm, throw the arm very forcefully into the string while allowing the arm to swing as your finger is held down into the string. Try a different string with a different finger. Be sure to check in with the shoulder and the thumb and make sure the motion is coming from above as the whole arm drops into the instrument. With intensity vibrato, we can create waves or vibrato-like sounds while we bow on open strings. Place your thumb in middle position with your fingers curved on top of the strings and begin the waving motion. Notice this is not a finger motion or a wrist motion, it's a whole arm motion with motion in an equal and opposite direction in the upper arm, just like in salt shaker. I find it most effective to teach the students to do a slight wind up before they begin this motion for most effective sound. As students develop a vibrato, we must teach them how to regulate the timing of the vibrato. This is where bumping finger to finger comes in. Place the index finger of your right hand on the D string and place the 2nd finger of the left hand on the D string as well. Vibrate 4 times per second, bumping into the finger each time. To make this easier, you might include a wind-up motion, just like a pitcher in baseball winds up before throwing the ball. Wind up your motion before you vibrate. Gradually increase this to 5 bumps per second. You can move on then later to 6 bumps per second or even 7. This motion is a similar exercise as bumping finger to finger, but instead of bumping into your finger, you'll bump back into the peg. Place the thumb at the very back of the throat in half position, and allow the hand to knock into the peg. While our upper string friends might be the only ones who use finger vibrato and wrist vibrato, all string players can benefit from additional flexibility in the wrist and fingers. We'll practice this now with half-step pivoting shifts. Place your second finger independently on F sharp and extend it to G and back while keeping your thumb in one stable position. Before playing with the bow, check the first joint for flexibility and freedom from excessive tension. Thank you so much for attending my session today on Rolland's approach to teaching shifting and vibrato. On the next slide, I'll provide a link to an exit slip, and I hope you'll take the time to fill it out. Your feedback is immensely helpful to me. I've set aside the next 5 minutes for a question and answer session, and I hope you'll unmute and ask your question. Thank you so much.